Hey guys, Chaco Taco here with Team Level Cap. This week's pubG guide is my top 3 tips for improving in pubG. These tips aren't meant for a specific skill level. They apply to new and experienced players alike. The first 2 of these are actually not utilized by a lot of the top players that I watch. I really believe that if you start incorporating the 3 tips in this video into your games, you'll start noticing a lot of improvement. Whether you're playing squads, duos, solos, first person, third person, it doesn't matter. Before we get started, I do want to say that I hope you can keep an open mind and try these out. If you just try these strategies once or twice and they don't work, that doesn't mean they're not optimal. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve for a few of these. Let's go ahead and get started with number 3, zeroing. This is definitely a controversial subject since most players don't use zeroing, but hopefully my explanation will help. For those that don't know, every AR and sniper rifle in pubG has the ability to zero using the default keys of page up and page down, and all these weapons have a default zeroing distance of 100 meters. This means that by default, if an enemy is 100 meters away, aiming with the center of your crosshair will be accurate. If they're farther away, then using the center won't work anymore unless you change your zeroing distance. As an example, here my trusty assistant is 100 meters away, and I've adjusted my zeroing on my weapon to be 300 meters. Although my crosshair is on his head, my bullets are going over because my weapon is adjusted to be accurate at 300 meters. Here my weapon is still zeroed for 300 meters, but my assistant is actually 300 meters away. Using the center of my crosshair, I can easily land a headshot with this correct zeroing. The advantages zeroing gives you over just aiming above your target are huge. This is a picture made by a player named Video Squid that I recently saw on the pubG subreddit. It shows where you need to aim with the ACOG and 8x scopes when using the Kar 98 in order to land a headshot. Props to Video Squid for the useful graphic, it's really awesome, but this is a lot of information to memorize. And this is only for the Kar 98. Bullet drop is completely different for other sniper rifles and ARs. Also, this won't help if you have a different optic like a red dot, hollow sight, or the 15x scope. Instead of memorizing where to aim with every scope and every weapon, you can instead just use your zeroing keys and use the center of every sight and scope to aim accurately. It's so much easier and it will make you so much more consistent. Also, since you'll now be using the center of your sight or scope to aim, hitting flick shots and shots on moving targets, especially at long range, is going to be a lot easier. If you play other shooters, then your muscle memory is probably to aim with the center of your crosshair. Trying to hit quick shots when aiming high with arbitrary points on a scope or sight is acting against that and is extremely hard to do consistently. All you need to do to get started with zeroing is change your zeroing keys and start practicing. I rebound my keys to T for zero up and G for zero down. I think it originally took me maybe less than a week to become comfortable with zeroing. The only trouble I really had was learning how to estimate distance. It's just a matter of practice and be prepared to miss some shots. I still miss shots using zeroing, like I'm doing right here. The zeroing distance on my SKS is 300 meters, but this enemy was a little bit closer, so my shots are going over. Just remember, if you do miss shots when zeroing, that doesn't mean that zeroing is bad. Nobody can hit 100% of their shots, especially at long distances. It takes some practice, but zeroing will make you more consistent with those tough shots. Let's move to my number 2 tip, which is getting a UAZ. This sounds kinda silly, but I'm completely serious. As I mentioned in my previous video about how to win games, you should always aim to have a vehicle, and the UAZ is without doubt the strongest vehicle. The first reason that I think the UAZ is the best vehicle is because of its fast start speed. When you first put your foot on the gas and use the boost with the UAZ, it moves quickly and immediately. Let's compare that to the Dacia. The Dacia is actually a lot faster than the UAZ, but we can see here that the UAZ is a lot quicker out of the gate. This is a lot more important than top speed in pubG. If you get in a Dacia or on a motorbike, it's going to take a lot longer to get moving. This leaves you very vulnerable to someone landing some easy shots on you. Also, the UAZ crushes every other vehicle when it comes to climbing steep hills or rough terrain. Here we're comparing it to the Dacia again, and even on a hill the UAZ accelerates almost at its normal rate. This might not be the most fair comparison because the Dacia is pretty terrible at climbing hills, but the other 2 vehicles aren't nearly as good as the UAZ either. Another thing about rough terrain, the UAZ is really hard to flip, unlike the buggy and the motorbike. If you do manage to tip the UAZ over, it usually manages to right itself. One other reason the UAZ is such a great vehicle is its ability to provide cover. If you have a UAZ, you have great cover wherever you may end up. Here I end up fighting 2 different enemies with the cover of my UAZ, and even move it to get into a better position. Positioning is often referred to as the number 1 most important thing in pubG, and I definitely agree. Having a UAZ makes it so that the map doesn't necessarily dictate when or where you're going to have good positioning. You can make a great position wherever you are. This isn't really possible with any other vehicle. The Dacia and the buggy are too small to provide solid cover, and the motorbike provides no cover at all. It's worth mentioning that in duos and squads, you can get multiple UAZs to provide tons of cover for your team, or just to have backup UAZs. It's also awesome to have the ability to escape or change positions quickly. If you're using the UAZ for cover and you get pinched, you can just hop in and speed off pretty fast. I know some people that say they will prefer the motorbike because it's so fast, but the motorbike has some major drawbacks. The main ones are that it has a slow start, it takes a long time to stop, it provides no cover, and it can unpredictably lead to your death. I will always go out of my way to switch to the UAZ if I see one, and I'll even search for one if I have extra time. Having a UAZ has gotten me out of countless sticky situations, and I've won many games using the UAZ in the final fights of a game. That brings us to my third and final tip for improving in PUBG, staying mobile. If you watch me play PUBG, I almost never stop moving. Whether I'm fighting an enemy, holding a building, or looting, I always try to keep moving. In many of these clips, I damage or engage an enemy and then I immediately change positions. This often results in me playing aggressively, but that doesn't have to be the case for you. You can instead just change to a different position altogether, maybe to a different building, to try and land some additional shots from a new spot. Once you engage an enemy or an enemy engages you, you've given them a lot of information about your position. The ultimate goal should be to give your enemy as little information as possible. By changing positions right away, not only do they not have information about your new location, but they also have false info about where they think you are. This puts you at a huge advantage because it will throw off their decision making. As far as changing positions go, I personally find a lot of success in putting pressure on an enemy. When someone sees you, they begin figuring out their next move. If you take the initiative and move on them, then you'll often have more control of the fight. I know that not everyone has an aggressive playstyle, but it might be worth getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and trying a new playstyle out from time to time. Even though it may not be for you, you can still get some experience and have a better understanding of how other aggressive players might play. Staying mobile doesn't just apply to combat. Strafing left and right in PUBG is one of the best defensive moves in the game, mostly because of bullet travel time. Here I'm looting and you can see that I'm strafing left and right while doing so. Getting hit while doing this is a lot less likely than if you're prone, crouched, or just standing there looting. This is especially true for headshots. You'll almost never get one shot by a Kar 98 or other sniper rifle while strafing back and forth. This makes it so that even if you do get hit while looting, it'll probably do minimal damage and allow you to react. The same thing is true when holding an angle or patrolling a building. If you continue to strafe left and right, your chances of being killed, especially getting killed instantly, go way down. Also, when you're in a building, move as much as possible between shots. You want to keep the enemy guessing about what you'll do next, so shooting 1 or 2 shots, then moving, is going to help you to avoid getting hit. The last main application of this is to change positions after you get a kill or after you're in a lengthy engagement. Sound is the most common way for enemies to locate you, so after a fight is over, you should consider heading to a new spot, especially if you're not in a building. Just like I mentioned before, your enemies will end up with false information. It's also important to consider changing positions if you're in a long fight and don't get the kill. It's extremely easy to get pinched after shooting for a minute or more from the same spot. Here I was in a fight for a while and ended up spending a lot of time in the same spot. There's not a lot of cover around, and since I didn't disengage, an enemy approached my left and ended up taking me out. This might have been avoidable if I didn't stay in combat at the same position for so long. Staying mobile is my #1 tip for improving because it's the thing that I have the most trouble dealing with when my opponents do it. And when I'm mobile, I seem to have the most success. The game mechanics in PUBG make it so that moving is often the best defense. Part of this is because movement in PUBG can be a little bit unpredictable. You can switch directions very quickly, and the running, crouching, and strafing animations can change the position of your head. Also, as we all know, hitting moving targets from far away is really challenging due to bullet travel time. When you combine the game mechanics with the advantages I discussed, staying mobile will give you a better chance of surviving, and in the end, that's what PUBG is all about. And that's it for my top 3 tips for improving in PUBG. I hope you guys do try some of these out, and also feel free to stop by my stream to ask questions and see some of these strategies in action. I stream every night on Twitch from 7 PM to midnight Central Time, and I offer a lot of commentary about my decision making when I play solos. I've hit rank 1 solo kill rating in North America for the past 3 seasons, and I'll be grinding again to try to hit that #1 spot. If you want to check it out, there's a link to my stream in the video description. As always, thanks for checking out the video, and good luck getting those chicken dinners.